Hi, Fiona.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Fine, just reaching down, grabbing my tea.
Well, yes, and because we are now in December, I broke out the Christmas tea.
Well, I haven't quite, but nearly. I've got one called Winter Warmer.
Nice. Very good, very good. Yep. It feels I've been putting it off, but yeah,
Yeah,
it felt
no,
like now
I've
it's
got
time.
what do you call it? I've got a tea advent calendar, but I just thought I'd have this one today because it's chilly. That's all. I thought, oh, Winter Warmer.
Yep, yep, definitely.
It's nice.
Fantastic. So today we're going to chat about one of our favorite topics,
Yeah.
visualization.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I actually recently I did a session with some teachers in Kazakhstan, and one of the activities that I did was a visualization. And I'm
Uh-huh.
always surprised at how it often seems so innovative to many people that they've never come across them
Yeah.
before.
It's curious, isn't it? I discovered, shall we say, visualization or started using it at least 20 years ago. Could be 22, could even be more, in fact. When I went to Cordoba in Spain, I went to a conference that had just started, which was Theta, and I think it was the first or second edition of Theta. And there was a chap there called Javi Avila. I don't know if you know him, but yeah, I haven't. Anyway, I went to one of his sessions and he was talking about visualization in the classroom. Well, he was talking about other things as well, but he had this one activity that we did in the session. And I found it so effective that I just started using it then. And I've been sort of experimenting with different types of visualization ever since.
Yep.
So
I
yeah.
think the first time I remember doing visualization was a session with Jane Arnold, who was very big on
Um,
using images as well.
well, Javi was one of Jane Arnold's group or trainees or students or something. Yeah, she'd been his like mentor. So yes, essentially all roads lead to Jane Arnold.
Fantastic. So, I mean, what is it that you love about visualizations?
Um, just about everything really. One thing is how effectively it triggers vocabulary and ideas essentially, because as you know, lots of students, when you ask them to write something, they have a, oh, I have no imagination kind of thing. And it really triggers the imagination. And I say it expands vocabulary, but also in a way that is very personalized. It's the language that students need, not something that we feed in. Although we can influence it slightly. We'll talk about that in a bit. Also because it provides a quiet moment, which isn't just beneficial for the teacher, it's beneficial for the students. It's a really relaxing, pleasant um, technique. And most students, whether they're teenagers or adults, they really appreciate that kind of moment of calm, the moment of just being in their heads, but in a nice place or an almost magical place. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask you why you like it first, but then I'm going to explain the potential pitfalls. But yeah, why do you like it?
Well, I mean, it's the three things that you've literally just mentioned. So one, that idea of personalization. Um, everything comes from the student, although we might give them some questions to guide them to spark their imagination. At the end of the day, it's very much what they see. So secondly, that leads into the emergent language that then
Mm.
I like the fact that when they're doing the visualization, they don't need language. And so there's no panic of, I don't know this word in English. But then
Yeah,
that
exactly.
comes
Yeah,
through afterwards in the feedback and the pair sharing and things. And
yeah,
then, like you say, that just that moment of calm um, is another reason, so many teachers, when I've done them in sessions, have been like, that was just like it was such a relaxing activity. They get a
Yes.
lot out of it as well, and I think admittedly sometimes the first time you do them, particularly with teenagers, there can be a bit of nervousness, a bit of giggling,
Well, that's what I was going to say.
but then,
Yeah, laughing
once
and
you
elbow jabbing neighbors and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but then when you kind of do it a couple of times, then they start to really appreciate it as well, I think. So I would say if anybody's
Yeah.
doing visualizations and it doesn't go well the first time, don't give up. Do
No,
it
that's
again.
exactly what I say. I talk about visualization quite a bit in teacher training sessions, and yeah, I always say the same. Just stick with it.
Mm,
Um, and if they do start giggling or they don't want to shut their eyes, sometimes students are very uncomfortable
yeah,
about closing their eyes. That'll depend on the classroom or the group vibe, the rapport. If they don't want to close their eyes, they can just look up because most classroom ceilings aren't particularly interesting. Well, I remember saying that in, I think it was Serbia somewhere in a conference. We all looked up, of course, painted ceilings, but generally speaking, so long as they're not focusing on stuff
yeah, yeah. It's
while
about
they're
the idea of
doing,
no distractions, whether you're looking up,
yeah,
looking down, just looking at your
well,
hand.
exactly.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Mm,
But that was exactly the kind of the downside I was going to mention is that the first time you do it, unless people with adults, you might have people who do yoga or Pilates or something like this, and so they're more accustomed to closing their eyes. But teenagers, younger adults, they might be a little bit uncomfortable, particularly girls, closing their eyes. Well, actually, not necessarily just girls. Sorry, I said that a bit too quickly without thinking it through. Um, so yeah, give them the option. But then when you do it the second time, generally speaking, they close their eyes because they know what's coming. They know it's calming
yeah.
and
And
helpful.
I always say as well for teachers not to move around the room when they're speaking, because I know that if I'm in a teacher training session at a conference or something, I'm I feel okay closing my eyes as long as I don't sense any sort of movement.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I think that's really important as well in terms of creating this space, this safe environment for these.
yeah. Well, that's also because movement is one of sensing movement is one of the senses. It's the
Mhm,
proprioception. So if the person leading the visualization, whether it's a voice guided one or music or picture or anything, if you move around, you'll cause sound distraction and there's movement distraction. And so some of the kind of the bandwidth of the learner's senses and attention will shift to you, which is not what you want. You want it to sort of everything be fully occupied by the visualization, by the activity.
mhm,
So yeah, standing still. And also the voice that you use if you do a voice related one. I mean, I've got quite a low voice anyway, as you can probably tell. But you've got to use a really calm voice. You've got to really lead it, almost a not a sleepy voice, but um I'm going to crack a joke now, which anybody who's been to any of my training sessions will have heard. But if you talk like that up there, it's very distracting because it's not really relaxing at all. You need a calm, almost like a bedtime story voice.
mhm, mhm. I feel actually, now you mention it, I should probably start all my sessions with a visualization because I think I get so excited when I'm presenting that I start talking at a mile a minute. And when I do a visualization, I do slow down. And I
You
notice
slow
from that
down.
moment on, I'm much calmer. I speak more
Yeah,
slowly. Yeah.
yeah. This is it. The voice is so important. Even if you're doing, say, like a musical one, anything you're leading when you're leading any kind of visualization, basically be careful with your voice. Just, you know, pitch it at the right level, not too fast.
Mhm.
It's got to be really calming and not distracting in any way. And if you've got a cough or something, like also make sure you're not going to cough your way through it, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And
You mentioned a music visualization there, which
yeah,
handily, there was one in the book, and this was one of your activities that
yeah, it would be, yeah.
because we kind of did a part B together. So I
We
think I'm
did.
trying to find the right page. Page
I
89.
think I did most of the visualization ones, didn't I? I don't know. I've got my copy here. Now there's a surprise. We prepared the book.
So these,
Yeah,
you need
I've got
two
it. So on
short pieces
89.
of music.
Yeah, which one did I do? Oh, I did the two short pieces of music one. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is what I was saying. You can slightly engineer stuff for emergent language. Um, and emergent language, I when I do visualizations and I get the students to note what they've seen or heard or whatever, um, they can write the vocabulary down in their own language.
Hmm.
And then after the actual visualizing, you have the vocabulary moment of working in small groups, see if they can fill each other's gaps in that sense, and then um, dictionary work or from the teacher, whatever. But it's sometimes good to be able to preempt or predict what kind of vocabulary you're going to get. And you can do that with the musical descriptions by selecting the music. So when you've got your activity, we should actually explain what one is in a moment. When you've got set up your activity, when you've planned your activity, you choose pieces of music, contrasting pieces of music, because I think was it last week we mentioned the brain likes contrast.
Mm.
Um, and so having a slightly more upbeat piece of music and a sort of a ballady type piece of music, or a lighter and a darker, this kind of thing, or different, very different styles, then that will really trigger the imagination. Sometimes the first piece doesn't trigger anything, but then with the change, the second one does.
Mm.
So, for example, when I do visualizing a city, which I do sometimes with like A1, A2, A2 particularly, because otherwise they're writing, there is a hospital, there are some houses. It's like, yeah, okay, what city doesn't have houses, guys? And also the vocabulary stays at a much lower level because they don't really know what else to say.
Mm.
So even if you do that with a B2, they're still writing there is a hospital, there are some houses. Anyway, so I uh, invite students to say, when you go to a new city, what do you notice? And we write that on the board. So you've got weather, traffic, signs, what clothes the people are wearing, the expression on the people's face. Do they all look harassed or do they look happy? Even the condition of the road. Yeah, I don't know. Are there goats walking around? No, that's silly, but I have been to places where that's the case. Um, Shops. I don't know. Are there trees? So we put all this stuff on the board, and then they close their eyes and they imagine that they have just arrived in the city. They've dumped their stuff in their B&B, and they walk out the door and what they see, and then you play the two contrasting pieces of music, just like a minute or two of each, or even less, 30 seconds a minute. An introduction, if you can find a piece with a longish introduction before the lyrics kick in, because
Mm.
lyrics can distract. Um, and then they're listening and they take notes of the traffic and the weather and the trees and flowers and the shops and the expressions, the stuff that you put on the board.
Mm.
And I haven't done this one for a while actually. I might do it next week. I'll try it. Yeah, as a kind of end of term thing that doesn't have to be on the officially on the schedule. Can be one of the language focuses. Um, yeah, so I used to play Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, which has this great atmospheric
Mm.
introduction. And I just played the introduction and then, you cut it. And then you contrast it with something like Perfect Day or an REM relaxing one, or what's her name? Is it Sharon Jones and the Kings? A song called 100 Days, 100 Nights.
Mm.
And that's great. That you kind of get New York in the 1960s kind of vibe from that.
Mm, cool.
Um, so yeah. What about you? What do you do with music?
Well, so this is one of those things. I know I don't use music as much as I potentially could in the lesson. And this is one of the reasons whenever people start talking about learning styles and things like that, and I'm a big fan of multiple intelligences, not in terms of pigeonholing people, but because it
Yeah.
makes me realize what I don't do in
Okay.
class.
Yeah.
Like music isn't a big thing for me. I like music, but and so yeah, I probably should do more with music because I could tap into
It's funny. I
some of
use it all the
those
time.
passions.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
I mean, it's different now as well being
Um,
online. Like I remember
hmm,
training in the past when we were in person, and one of the course directors, she would always have music. There would be music when people were coming in, and then when they
yeah.
were doing an activity, she would have the music on very quietly, and then at the end of the activity, she would turn the volume up to
Yeah.
kind of signal, right, everybody come back together. So she'd found ways to use it very effectively as well in terms of classroom management and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's something I never took on because it wasn't something that kind of spoke to me. I liked it when other people did it.
Yeah, I use music a lot. I use it very selectively. Perhaps we should do a separate chat on this one day. Um, but in terms of visualization, I occasionally use it when we're having essay writing. Um,
Mm.
so most of my visualization activities lead up to writing activities. They go through, it's integrated skills, I guess. They go through a speaking stage to a writing stage, but that writing is almost by definition usually a description or a story. But we do a lot of academic writing and IELTS and this kind of thing, which the visualization doesn't work quite so well for. However, when they're writing in class, I usually get them writing in pairs for a start. I might play a like some kind of music in the background. You kind of think that the mood of the music will feed into their writing.
Mhm.
Um, but obviously, yeah, you can't play it in a distracting way. And it is tricky because sometimes you end up with students just going, "Oh, I like this piece of music," and and they're more tuned into the music than to what they're doing.
Mm,
But little snatches of music I might play while they're writing, to kind of give them a nudge in the right direction, if that makes sense.
mm. I mean,
Um,
I think that's true as well. I think it can be a distraction. I remember another session and it was a creative writing activity with various clips of music. So there
yeah,
was kind of imagine this character and there was a piece of music and then imagine this character and there was a piece of music. And I remember the second one, it was an Alicia Keys song. So my mind was automatically this character was Alicia Keys.
all right,
And so I
okay,
think, like you were saying, sometimes just doing the introduction can help before the lyrics kick in, or,
yeah,
choosing songs which our students probably haven't heard or may not have heard, um, can be a nice way to minimize that sort of influence.
yeah. Oh, there's sometimes. I mean, another thing I do with music and visualization is what I call musical stories. I don't actually remember if that's in the book. I'm not going to look right now. Um, where you start off, for example, I use what's that song? Delilah by Tom Jones is one piece I use. I do it two different ways. So one way is just literally playing the music, stopping and asking questions. So you start off by going, right, we're going to write a story. You're going to listen to this piece of music and you're going to just note down, where are we? Or rather, you're going to shout out, when I stop the music, I'm forgetting my own activities now. When I stop the music, you're going to shout out where the story is set. So you start because that's got that really dun 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 da, 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 introduction, that thing, and you just play the beginning of it. But just play like 2 seconds and stop, and then they're shouting out, I don't know, the beach, the street, the, I don't know, the pier, the whatever. And you just pick one and go, right, we're going with that one. Next,
Ooh, nice.
somebody walks onto the beach. Who is it? Play a little bit more. No, right. It's a man in a long black coat. And because it's highly dramatic music, I know it's going to influence the choices. And then you've got this. And somebody was walking towards him. You know, who is it? Play it again. Oh, it's a woman in a long floaty red dress. Okay, right, stop. Next bit. She's carrying something, this sort of thing.
Mm,
Build it up, and you build up the first part of the story as a whole class using the music. And you put them in pairs, and you get them to write that, the bit that you've just done as a class, and somebody reads it out, and then they have to finish off their story.
mm,
Um, so that's like heavily influencing through the choice. It's like the opposite there. And the
yeah.
other thing I do is split the class into three groups, and you say, guys, you're going to be in charge of the setting, you're going to be in charge of the main character, and you're going to be in charge of the monster, for example.
Hmm.
Then they brainstorm vocabulary that they might need to describe a monster, describe a main character, and describe the setting, whether it's castle, stairs, walls, brick, stone, mm, I'm going to say turret, I mean Oxford, spire, whatever. And on the other side, they're brainstorming scales and fangs and teeth and purple and whatever, and you're going around helping. And then you say that you're going to play a piece of music. Each one's going to visualize, and then these guys are going to visualize the place.
Hmm.
Those guys are going to visualize the characters, and these guys are going to visualize a monster. So you split it up that way, and then you
Mm.
play, and I usually play the introduction to the overture of El Amor Brujo by Manuel de Falla. And again, it's this really starts off really kind of spooky, but then you've got these trumpets. So, you get castles and then you get what do you call pennants and knights and the monster like a big, and it's brilliant. And then you just get everybody to sort of work in three, take one from this group, one from that, one from that. They work together and they write their story.
Mm. Love it.
So that's the two ways of doing musical stories. What about you, though? I mean, do you, in visualization, if you don't use stories, what kind, stories, dong. If you don't use music, how do you
I
do
mean,
your
sometimes I
visualization?
start with an image, um, and sometimes I do start with a story, but so another one that I did recently was, hang on, I've probably got my notes somewhere. Um, so once upon a time, there was a guy called Dave. He was at home one day playing video games. So you tell them that, and then you say, okay, what does Dave look like? What's he wearing? What room of the house is he in? What does that room look like? What video game is he playing? And then they kind of build more from that. And then you tell them the next part of the story. But the idea being that n nothing that they say, so then it's not kind of Dave was in the living room. Like you don't, it's all very generic. So whatever
Yeah.
they've imagined is valid for the next part of the story.
And presumably when you're saying what does he look like, you're doing it in a kind of now close your eyes.
Yep,
Imagine Dave in his living room playing video games.
yep, yep.
What does he look like? Yeah, this is it. The setup is it's very different from like in course books, you have the you're going to write a story, answer these questions, and then build your stuff. And then students will tend to stay outside their head for
Mm,
that kind of thing. They're focusing on the question and the page
mm,
and going, what does he look like? He's got, I don't know, let's say black hair, rather than going inside
yeah.
and visualizing and going, oh no, wait, no, he doesn't. He's got like ginger hair, quite fine. It's a bit messy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think that's it. I think when they
yeah,
do close their eyes, they see more details as well.
exactly. Yeah. And it gives them the headspace to find the vocabulary. And then when they write the story, they feel so much happier. They're writing. improves
Hmm.
exponentially because it's not just grammar and vocab, or it's not just grammar, should we say, that will make a piece of writing like lower level. It's the lack of ideas. And so as
Mm,
soon as they've got the ideas and then they're asking for how to express those ideas,
yeah.
their writing becomes so much better. So what else do you do with your with images? Have you got any more visualizations based on images?
Well, I'm thinking we might save that for another chat. We don't want to give away all our ideas in one cup of conversation.
Gosh, so we've
That's
ended up doing visualization part one.
part one. Yep, definitely.
Why do it and why do it with music?
Yep. Well, I mean, so
Coming
that's a
soon.
good questions for anyone who's listening. Let us know in the comments.
Oh,
Do you
yeah,
use visualizations? Do you
exactly.
use music? And
Coming soon
share
will be
any ideas.
visualization with pictures and with your voice.
Mhm. Yep, and as always, like and subscribe, and we'll be
Yeah,
back next week with another cup of conversation.
with more tea.